Greetings and welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight. Very happy to be here with you this week. I have got a guest that I'm just so excited about, Ryan Wood, who's a friend and colleague of mine. I've known Ryan, for years. Ryan is a very well-known UFO researcher and lecturer. He's known for his extensive work on UFO crash or UAP crash retrieval incidents. He's been involved in the field of ufology for many, many years. He's made many significant contributions. His most acclaimed work, I must say, is Magic Eyes Only. He's got it behind him there. Here you are right up front. By the way, the original edition of that book looked like this, but the revised and newly expanded edition looks just like that. And it's one of my favorite books, has always been, in this field. It is it explores, well, the original version, more than 70 UFO crash incidents. The new version's got more. Supported by very compelling evidence in the form of official documents, eyewitness accounts, and in some cases, physical evidence. I think Magic Eyes Only is one of the most authoritative books ever published on the UFO subject in general, and definitely on UFO, UAP crash retrievals. Ryan also, for many years, ran the annual Crash Retrieval Conference. I'm believing we're starting around 2004 till 2010. Correct me on that, Ryan, if I'm wrong. These were remarkable. I was part of many of them. Fantastic conferences, very important. And Ryan is also a business leader. He's a CEO and co-founder of a very interesting company called Electric Fusion. Maybe we can discuss that as well. Ryan, welcome to the program. Good to have you.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Richard. Yeah, I remember those crash retrieval conferences vividly, and I was so happy to help all sorts of people gain a foothold in ufology, from obscure crashes to people like yourself.
Oh yeah,
and launch a lot of people into a more robust engagement into ufology.
You had me in there, I think, starting around 2005 or sometime around that. I was still pretty much a new guy in the field, and I was very grateful for the opportunity. And the conferences were all just outstanding.
Yeah,
you had a lot of great guests.
Yeah, we did them in Las Vegas, and I committed to doing 10, and I've done 7, so I might do more. However, I'm preoccupied with electric fusion systems, which is an effort to do scalable fusion power appliances in a roller bag sort of size that are direct to electricity approaches. It's very fundamentally different energy dynamic, because we're lowering the cost of electricity with electric fusion by a factor of 10 to potentially 100. And that could reshape the entire globe as much as AI will, and bring it to a fairer, less poverty prone. I mean, there's 3 billion people that are in deep trouble with water, food, etc. And if you're an extraterrestrial civilization popping by planet Earth, you would say, my God, these people are really out of control. There's no unified political authority. There's no unified treatment of humanity. Just on and on, you could think of all these different assessments that might be made.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wish you definitely success on electric fusion. We have occasionally talked about it, and I've always thought it was fascinating and of great potential significance. So yes, please, I hope we will all stay up to date on that. I should mention you also published another book, which is behind you there, the AI Ufologist, which I have a copy of. That's an interesting book too. Maybe we can chat about that. Basically putting questions to AI about aspects of ufology, and it is quite interesting.
Yeah, the way I did that book is I sort of trained ChatGPT-4 with 4 or 5 books and some papers that I had on my computer, and then asked it a question, and I was surprised at the quality and sophistication of the answer. And then I asked it another question, and then another and another. And these are all questions that I was fascinated by. what's the agenda? Why are they taking humans? So why can't the government be more transparent? What's the national security secrets? What's the role of
Yeah.
MJ12?
You went down to
On and on and
GPT.
on. And
Went down the
I,
rabbit hole with GPT.
yeah, exactly. From crop circle technology to, just the things that fascinated me. And 16 hours later, I was done with the book. I mean,
I love that kind of a book project.
so that was the, and so wow, I was fascinated.
Cool. Well, let's put a pin in that, as someone likes to say.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I've got my copy of Magic Eyes Only here,
Yeah.
and I have your original. It's around here somewhere. I've read it only about a dozen times or more. I will just say, yeah, I'm getting brownie points here. I admit it, but I have talked up Magic Eyes Only to every audience that I can for years. I have always considered it one of the single most important books. Here's why. Look, we're in an era now where UAP crash retrievals are being discussed out in the open. We had David Grush last summer telling Congress, yes, this is true. We've got biologics. All of that. I have no doubt you're watching him thinking, yeah, tell me something I don't know. I literally wrote the book on this. Like you can say,
Yeah.
I wrote the book on this more than 20 years earlier, in an era when no one was paying attention to this at all.
Yeah.
And you, and I know you worked with your dad, Dr. Bob Wood, who I adore. He's, I know, very close in your research with you, but you put this together, and can you? I don't want to talk about your book. I think you should talk about.
Right. Okay.
Give us an overview of what Magic Eyes Only then and now sets out to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, the impetus was somebody at the Crash Retrieval Conference, in the early 2000s said, aren't you going to be done with crash retrievals in another conference or two? There's only like 10 of them or something. And I said, no, there's a lot more. So I decided to write the book and really research and leverage off of the work of Leonard Stringfield and the other UFO investigators. So I'm not the exclusive investigator in Roswell, for example. You go to Stan Friedman, you go to Kevin Randall, you go to several other people that spend a lot of time with it, or Kecksburg with Stan Gordon, or I'm the primary investigator for the Cape Girardeau 1941 UFO crash, which I spent a lot of time on. But I really assembled the confluence of the Majestic documents that talk about crash retrievals starting in 1941 and then 42 events and then onward, and then pull together the other people and other investigators to round out these cases. And that was the 2005 book, which had 74 crash retrieval events, which was exciting. And then when Grush, shocked the world with saying it's all real, I decided, well, it's time to update this. And so I have 104 crash events in the new version, and many of the cases were updated with the latest research from various investigators.
Fantastic.
And then added some more ones and put some of the other Stringfield ones that were highlighted by Michael Schratt in his work and investigations with art and focus that I sort of missed. And then as it is, I still have another 10 on my desk. I just wanted to get it done and get it out. And they all need all sorts of additional investigation. Well, not all of them, but many of them do. I started with an authenticity rating for each case, sort of low, medium, medium, high, and high. And there's all sorts of metrics that go into their authenticity rating, from the forensics, the ink and paper, the provenance, zingers, content analysis, multiple witnesses. So there's a complicated formula that's in the book on weighting factors and so forth that begins to rank and rate. But most of the cases are in sort of the neutral position, which means that the needle for authenticity could move higher if people did more research and investigation, or it could move lower for the same cause. And,
exactly.
recently in the book, the Ramey Baca story with Jose Padilla went down because Doug Johnson did a lot more research and concluded that, oh yeah, this guy's lying. He was on and on. So this is all good.
Yeah, I was always very glad that you had that rating in there for each entry, and I was very happy that you retained it, because it's kind of nice. People, when they get the book, they'll see what you mean. In any case here, I'll see if I can show them.
Yeah.
There's a little dial right underneath the date of the incident. And that one, you've got it right up the middle, so it's neutral. But some are over far to one end or the other, where you indicate how strong you think the case is.
Right, and it's referenced and indexed. I mean, I'm not trying to be the final authority. I'm sort of being the preponderance of the evidence. And here's, Nick Pope recently said, if just one of these cases turns out to be true, it's going to change the world. But that's his perspective. And Jacques Vallée recently gave me a quote for the new book and said, this is going to be the research tool that allows people to sort of better understand the nature of the enigma, so to speak.
It's interesting. Well, I don't want to go down a whole side road about Jacques Vallée, but over the last several years, he has definitely noticeably moved in the direction of crash retrievals. He did his own work with Paola Harris on the Trinity event, of course. For years before that, people who remember, Jacques Vallée did not necessarily put a lot of credence in crash retrieval accounts. In fact, I would say almost at all. But he's clearly moved into a different direction here, and I'm glad that he is endorsing your work.
Yeah. I mean, and I recently read his little background bio, and he was one of the very earliest people into artificial intelligence.
Yep.
In computer science and astronomy, writing machine learning codes in the I think it was early 80s or even in the 70s. So and then he was a consultant on Close Encounters as well.
He's legendary.
So, but he's getting on in years, but he seems to be plugged into the Soul Foundation and what they're doing. But anyway, Magic Eyes Only was an interesting effort. We talked a little bit about the authenticity, but central to this is the most powerful Majestic document, the Special Operations Manual, Extraterrestrial Entities, Technology, Recovery, and Disposal.
Let's talk about this now. I want to get this out in the open, the Majestic documents. Not everyone understands what you mean here. So many people have heard of the MJ-12 documents. Those were leaked in the 1980s, caused a huge ruckus that has not ended to this day. Those were 7 pages on a photographic negative. The Majestic documents are vastly different and greater. And I would love for you just to talk about them. I'm a supporter of your work on the Majestic documents, and I would love for you to explain people just exactly what you mean by that.
Well, that's a great question. I think the first thing people need to understand is that this is a collection of some 3,500 pages that first leaked, as you mentioned, in 1984 from Jamie Chandray as undeveloped film in a mailbox in LA, to another leak of the Special Operations Manual via Don Berliner in 1994 as, again, Triax film, mailed from La Crosse, Wisconsin, and then to Tim Cooper and various sources. But there's 7 sources spanning basically 20 plus years. There's been nothing of real note recently. And so any sort of thought that this is disinformation is just pretty nonsensical, because you have all these different sources, all these different documents. Some are challenging. You aren't convincing anybody because there's all these issues. And some are really compelling, like the Special Operations Manual, Top Secret Magic. And some are with original paper and ink.
Yeah,
Like
they're not all photographic negatives or digital images. They
right,
are physical
exactly.
pieces of paper with ink
Yeah, like the
that can be
encyclopedia.
analyzed.
Right. The Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers, for example, is real paper and ink, so you can look at the forensics of the ink and the pencil writing and the top secret magic stamps and say it's old. And so it's a wealth of insight that's potentially shapes your perspective on how much government interaction and when this really stuff started.
Yeah.
So
So you were mentioning that as a way, I think, to support some of your work in Magic Eyes Only. If I
right,
can, yeah,
and one of the a couple of the leaked documents talk about 1942 Los Angeles air raid crash, where one crashed into the ocean and the Navy got it, and one went into the San Bernardino Mountains, where it was recovered by the Army. And funny enough, Tim Cooper lives in the San Bernardino Mountains, and Thomas Cantwell, one of the leakers of many of the Majestic documents, presumably lives there too, or did before he died of cancer. But he claimed to work under James Jesus Angleton in the Counterintelligence Corps of the CIA and part of the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit. And I will just mention that the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit is not some figment of my imagination. The FOIA requests have acknowledged that, yes, this is part of the Air Force Chief of Staff Chamberlain's Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit. But the institutional memory is gone and there are no records, blah, 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 sort of response from the National Archives.
It's amazing that, yeah, there's an acknowledgement. When I first came across that phrase years ago, I thought, this can't be real.
Right.
But it was confirmed.
Right.
There was something called the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, IPU.
Yep.
Maybe we could even talk about that. I'm not sure where you really want to go first. I mean, I'm fascinated by all of the evidence you've amassed for Magic Eyes Only in the form. This is a history of UAP, UFO crash retrievals. That's really the best way that I could describe it. It's better than any other book that's ever been tried on the subject. How many of these cases, let me ask you, first of all, I think you believe in the reality of crash retrieval. That's obvious. Do you have an estimate as to how many you think? You've got, I think, maybe 15 or so that I think you rate very, very highly in here, something along those lines. Can you speak a little bit about some of these stronger cases and why you think they're so strong? And and maybe we can get into, what you think is the ultimate reality behind the whole crash retrieval phenomenon and how it works. What are your thoughts about it? I know that's a pretty open-ended question.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, I have 104 cases here in this book and a few more on my desk, but it's biased into the United States and Europe and English-speaking environments, and I'm sure there's more in Russia and China and South America and Africa. So I think the real number is probably double or triple that.
Wow.
And so there's a lot more, bodies that people ask, well, why did they crash? That's just like, it was one of the senators, or excuse me, congressman that said, I'm from Missouri, and like, how can these advanced civilizations, just screw up so badly and crash in our podunk planet? And Grush said, well, there's a certain number of sorties that end in mission failure. And but my response is, you can't discount a large negative lightning bolt, which is millions of amps and millions of volts, interrupting their craft in the Roswell, New Mexico environments, or that we try to shoot them down with the LA case with anti-aircraft, or radar interfering with their systems before they figured out that, oh, well, we got to deal with that. Or the biological robot, these are biological entities that are just engineered to explore the cosmos, and they're on one-way missions to gather info. And, hey, I'm out of fuel. I don't care.
Right.
I put my information back into the system.